I don't see it this time. Interesting.
Grassy,
Just give me the when it's done because I can't see it. I saw Erika dancing. Oh, really? Oh, shit, my bad. It's like actors when they tell them to act when there's no music. Like, just pretend you're dancing.
Has to be like in.
What's up, everybody? It's Chad. We're back again with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. Starting off with bloopers. I love it. We're back with another episode.
The intro, but that's okay.
That's all right. We're back with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. I obviously have some guests with me this week. I didn't plan it, but I did at the last minute, and they obliged. And thank you so much, ladies. That was Victoria that was sounding off at the beginning. Thank you so much for joining me. And I also have Erika and Annie down here from Carver Family Farm. Victoria is from a law firm that's Rudick, right? Is that the way you say it?
Yeah, Rudick Law Group.
There we go. Rudick Law Group over in Albuquerque. She works on a lot of cannabis stuff, among other things. And I'll let her explain that here in a little bit. But thank you, ladies, for joining me. Victoria, I have too many names in the chat right now. Victoria actually joined me a couple of months ago, and we were talking about a different topic. But today we're actually only really have one topic. But before we get to that, I want these wonderful ladies to introduce themselves, and I will start with Erika and Annie.
Hi, I'm Erika Hartwick-Brown. I am co-owner with my husband, Andrew Brown, of Carver Family Farm, New Mexico's first vertically integrated licensed micro business. That's such a mouthful, man, but yeah. And we're here in Albuquerque, and this is my right-hand lady, Miss Annie.
Hello, I'm Annie Pantoja. I've been working for Carver for 2 years now as a GM, so I have a pretty extensive background in cannabis. I started in the medical market. I've been in it for about 11 years. Most of my recent emphasis has been in compliance and management. So, yeah.
Nice. Well, welcome.
Be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And you've been around about as long as I have. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, dope.
Yeah.
Victoria, go ahead, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm Victoria Cvitanovic. I am of counsel to and the data privacy officer for a law firm called Rudick Law Group, PLLC. We specialize in emerging industries. The firm started out as a cannabis law firm. When I joined the firm, I brought the psychedelics practice as well as the cybersecurity, data privacy, and AI governance practice. And now I spend most of my time as a lawyer working with people in various forms of plant medicine, either psychedelics or cannabis or other novel healthcares, at the intersection of how what they do fits into the business world, the healthcare system, or the advancement of technology.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And, again, ladies, thank you so much for joining me. And such short notice, too, because we were kind of having this conversation a little bit yesterday, and we're like, shit, I got to get both of you on. We got to really continue this conversation and get it out there. So thank you so much. And Annie, thank you so much, too. I know you're the manager lady, so you're busy as well, too. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. And Victoria, I know you're very busy. So we'll get on to it. First, before we get on to our main topic, I want to kind of get a background on everybody. Annie, I mean, you have a pretty extensive background in the New Mexico's cannabis industry. Do you care to share on that a little bit and kind of expand a little?
I started off working for Bang Extraction and Chocolates. So I worked there for about 7 years, doing various management, inventory system building, accounting duties. I also have attended the University of New Mexico and got a couple of the certificates offered through the cannabis program there. One in cultivation, one in business of cannabis. And then, I also helped build a third-party manufacturer edible company by the name of Yum Clouds. Started off like literally painting the walls and built the company from the ground up. So when I started at Carver, I kind of came in the same way. There was a split in partnership, and we needed to rebuild the foundation, and so that's kind of how I ended up here.
So you're a builder. Annie the builder over here. That's good to hear. And yeah, I remember Bang Chocolate and everything in the medical days. I would see them at the events and stuff when our advocacy would pop up and all that. So That's cool to hear. And, it's good to see that, more people are still here today from the old school, medical days and stuff like that. Cause you remember the struggle for sure.
There's been plenty of them. So
Definitely. And when did your cannabis journey really start? When did you first experience, your first experience with cannabis? When was that?
wow. I mean, my first experience with cannabis obviously was a teenager. I started using cannabis as, just experimenting with it, but then realized how much it helped me medicinally, because I do have gastro issues and other things I use cannabis for. So it kind of started that way. And then I got the opportunity to join Bang at ground level. And they were actually the first company with a CO2 extraction machine, which was really huge back then. And then from there, I love helping the community, helping people have access to medicine that's helps them more than hurts them, as far as we know. So that's kind of where my passion is in helping the community. And
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for sharing, all the other stuff too. You didn't have to share it and you did, that's great, because some people need
Hey,
to
that's
hear
part
what
of it.
cannabis works on sometimes. Like, oh, you can use it for that? Or,
Yeah.
it helps her for that? Okay, maybe I'll give it a try. So I thank you for that. Appreciate it. Erika, let's jump over to you. I know I'm kind of blazing through, but we've got a lot to talk about on this other topic. But I still wanted to give you all the opportunity, to kind of give your backgrounds and everything. But we'll do it a little different. We did on that one. We'll start with your beginning of cannabis journey, and then we'll go into the other one. I kind of did it backward with Annie. Sorry about that.
My beginning with cannabis journey was, I think, sophomore year of high school. And I had been around it a lot, and I never used it, knowing that my dad had retired from CIA counter narcotics. And it was definitely a big no-no, anything like that in our household or just being used. And though alcohol was absolutely, the way to go. And I realized all of my high school friends, the ones that were hanging out and puffing, were a lot less stressed. We're not getting DUIs. We're not getting in accidents. And I basically decided that it was time to start switching over. And I think at the time it wasn't really as obvious or as a deciding factor for me, other than the fact that it was just this is an obvious choice. And so a funny story is that my source for my weed at the time was Andrew, my husband, who we did not know each other. He was a year ahead of me in school. And allegedly, Victoria, allegedly. And then fast forward to 2007, Andrew and I connected through MySpace. I was in Costa Rica doing a master's program in international peace studies. He was here blowing glass, and I had just been looking for people that I remember from high school. We started talking and skipping over some stuff that actually brought in quite a bit of trauma. While I was in Costa Rica, I ended up here in New Mexico with Andrew and going to nurse practitioner Brian Crum, who, when I was talking to him, asked me if cannabis would help me with my flashbacks and PTSD and things that I was dealing with at the time. And I was like, yes. And I applied for the card and then applied for the patient producer license, because I also knew that I had somebody very close to me, Andrew, that knew how to grow exceptionally good weed. And so he got his card and we both started growing our own medicine. And that's basically where it kicked off in 2008. We actually consulted for a few different companies that are and are not still in New Mexico, or have taken on different iterations. And now we decided when the governor said that there would be micro licenses available and that it would be affordable for us to get involved, we jumped on that. And with the help of our third partner, we got a bunch of funds, not even a bunch. We started this operation for y'all who are in New Mexico. We started Carver Family Farm with a $350,000 budget. So if you want to know what a traditional grower can take from a closet in our house to what we have now here at Carver Family Farm, there's no reason that anybody has to spend the kind of money that goes out the door. Those of us who have been doing it covert for a minute know how to stretch that penny for sure.
Yeah.
And this is going on a little bit longer. I'm sorry.
No, please.
It's a fun story. It's a
Yeah,
fun
no,
story.
I love it. It's my first time hearing it.
Yeah. And so we ended up finding this location, which is actually where Steep Hill Labs was back when we had Steep Hill as one of the labs that we could take. Andrew and I brought our patient produced stuff that we were for ourselves and brought it to the labs to get tested, because Andrew's a full-on science nerd and wanted to know all the things. And we also wanted to see where our benchmarks were, and we could level up, or we could do whatever it was that we were trying to do. And from there, that's how we knew about this location, 8917 Adams Street, over by Balloon Fiesta in Albuquerque. And when we were looking for a property that we could set up a grow, a manufacturer, a retail all under one roof, this was available, and we snapped it up. So
Nice.
That's how we got to where we are now. We got our license December 15th in 2021. And we were able to finish our first harvest and get it ready to go. Lab tested and all the things a couple of weeks into March of 2022, right before rec went live April 1st. And so with that, we were able to actually show people that we were by patients for patients, and that we weren't messing around with anything. We're organically grown, no-till living soil. It's as clean as you can get, and we're very serious about what we do. So, but we have a lot of fun also. We try anyway.
Definitely, you know. And
yeah.
it's been like 18 years of experience, and you know, and it shows.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For Andrew, obviously, he's been the entrepreneur since I graduated in 95. He graduated in 94 from high school. So start
that 1 year. He's got that extra year on you.
Yep.
But thank you for that. And that's the first time I've heard that story, you know, and especially with the patient side, you know, because that's kind of huge. You know, that's something that even as an advocate, we pushed for. We kept telling people, patients grow fire cannabis. I don't know what to tell y'all. It just is what it is. And it's being, you know, shown in the pudding today that it's still true, you know, and they're able to scale it up. Don't get me wrong. Not all patients can, but some patients figured it out. And so, you know, y'all are those people, and, you know, the experience shows, and especially with everything you had going on. So thank you for sharing that.
I have one more thing to add.
Of course.
Just, I left out the glass blowing part, which is kind of a big deal for us. So Andrew, his glass blower name is Carver B. He also was Andrew Brown Glass. And the way that we got our name Carver is because he cold works glass. And so we carved glass when we were doing our glass work. We'd love to get back to it, but this has taken a little bit more time than we intended. But the actual logo that we have is the same as a pendant that Andrew makes. And so if anybody's curious about the Carver background, that's the Carver, the B Brown Carver B. All right, back to everybody else.
Thank you. No, and thank you for that explanation, because some people are like, is your name Carver? And it's like, no, it's, you know, this, and the explanation, and it's in the logo. So that's so cool. And I always thought that was really dope, especially when he showed me his artwork. I was like, oh, it's the logo. So, but thank you for that. And we'll move on to Victoria, then we'll get on to our topic and everything. So Victoria, same questions for you. You know, when did it start, and, you know, where to you're now?
I love getting this question, because as a woman who grew up in the Deep South, was raised in the Deep South, my first experience with cannabis doesn't look like a lot of the stories I hear from other people who are involved. I hear about people who are in high school and they're at a party or whatever, but where I grew up, that would have been a sin. You know, that would have been the scariest thing that anyone could do.
Yeah.
So my cannabis story starts a little bit later. And frankly, the very first experience I had with cannabis was not particularly memorable. I was a college kid. Somebody passed me the bowl. I decided to give it a try. That was the end of that. Didn't really think about it very much. But cannabis took on a very different meaning for me very shortly after that. I dated a really nice guy in college who got arrested for cannabis possession and attempted sale of cannabis. And it was not some sort of like little here's a ticket thing like you would see today. This was in Mississippi. This person had their apartment raided by multiple officers. They were taken away in handcuffs. They were put in actual jail. And later on, news stories came out about how college students were targeted in these kinds of cannabis cases in an attempt by law enforcement to flip people up the chain and try to get these scary drug dealers we were always hearing about in media in the Deep South.
Mhm.
And I remember feeling so powerless when that happened. Me and that person broke up shortly afterwards, so I never got to tell him how profoundly this affected me. But seeing that arrest and seeing what happened, I remember being in the car with my mom shortly afterwards, talking to her about this. And she was like, "Well, what did you learn from this experience?" And I could tell that she thought I was going to say that, like, oh, cannabis is bad and I want to stay away from it forever. But what I said was, I'm going to do something about this. One day, I'm going to do something about this. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how it's going to look, but this is unfair. And even though me and that person didn't keep talking or keep dating or whatever, thought about him a lot as I was going through the rest of my life. Many people know that when I went to law school, my first job afterwards was I was a prosecutor.
Mhm.
And I did felony first appearances and saw people charged with drug crimes. And I ended up working as a narcotics screener and making charging decisions about drug cases. And then later on, I ended up working in major crimes and trying to fight things like trafficking and gang activity and violence that can go alongside the illicit market of drug use and the environment that we've created here in the United States.
Mhm.
I left that work devastated. Devastated. And the reason I was so hurt, so deeply upset, was that I had entered prosecution at a time when there was a real belief in this country in the idea of progressive prosecutors. There was this idea that you could make a difference by being in the system, by following the rules with care and compassion, and by treating the person on the other side of you, the person whose life hung in the balance with these charges, as a human being, even though you were the prosecutorial authority. In my time in that role, I came to believe in the effectiveness of that less and less. Not because we don't need progressive prosecutors, we absolutely do, but because the policy environment does not match people's needs. Drug policy in America does not match what people actually need to be healthy, safe, and happy individuals. I was just completely devastated by the fact that I kept seeing people be prosecuted who I thought should be patients. I kept seeing people be prosecuted who had open and obvious physical and mental health care needs in the richest country in the world with the most advanced healthcare system in the world. And when I walked away, I had no idea how I was going to reconcile what I had learned about society with the rest of my life. So I made a decision that I was going to learn everything I could about healthcare law, about corporate law and finance, and about technology so that I could understand how the movement of money and the deployment of technology resulted in these motivations to create these prohibition-based policies that resulted in a motivation to keep people in jail and not in society, and how we get here and how we stay here in a country that's full of smart people, resources, and lots of opportunities to do something different. And so I got mired in this world of healthcare law and tech law and corporate finance and M&A and all these things. And I thought that was what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I really did. Until one day I was at the gym and I was in an accident. I experienced a severe back injury and I was left with almost none of the mobility and athletic ability that I had enjoyed up until that point in my life. I had no idea what I was going to do. And I had so many things other people didn't have. I had a supportive family. I had a supportive friend group. I had a supportive religious community. I had a supportive boss, an employer, and all of these great things going for me. And even with all of those resources, the extreme physical pain I was in and the mental burden of knowing what I had to do in physical therapy and in my life in general, if I wanted any hope of having a normal life back, were so heavy that I felt stuck. I felt like I was never going to get out of this point. One of my clients, actually, one of my typical healthcare clients, reached out to me and said, Victoria, you are obviously hurting. You are obviously in pain. You need psychedelic assisted therapy. And I laughed at her and was like, I am a former drug prosecutor and I'm a Buddhist. I don't even touch alcohol. Like, I'm not gonna go get high. Like, I'm not gonna do that. And she laughed at me and she said, oh, you will. You will. And she hung up the phone and she called my priest. She called my priest. And he called me back. And he said, Victoria, I need to ask you a question. And that question changed the course of my life. And he said, are psychedelics about connection or are they about escapism? And all of a sudden, it made sense. People in my life were not trying to get me to get high and forget that I had hurt my back or get high and forget that I was in chronic pain. They were trying to get me back in the room with them, holding hands with them, doing something together. And so I decided to do it. I tried out psychedelic assisted therapy and experienced profound healing. I ended up representing a lot of ketamine clinics and other psychedelic operations through my own personal work. And they guided me back to cannabis. And they said, this plant medicine journey that you're on isn't complete without this plant. And it's not complete without these people. And you have to see what's happening over here if you're going to really understand what it means to take on the responsibility of advocating for patients in America. And so I became a cannabis medicine patient. And cannabis medicine is the reason why, even with a severe back injury that left me in chronic pain, I have been able to stay in the workforce. I've been able to stay a lawyer. I've been able to achieve great things as a lawyer. I've been able to support my family. I've been able to pay my medical bills. I've been able to have a life. Mm-hmm. And my husband still has his wife. My parents still have their child. I am here because I got a lifeline that wasn't an eternal opiate prescription or, grin it and bear it and figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so that experience inextricably changed who I was, not just as a person, but as a lawyer. I had this great, amazing corporate big law job, and I was proud of the work I was doing. But what I was more proud of were the people in psychedelics and cannabis that I was starting to be able to help. So I gave up the corporate thing, joined an all-woman, all-plant medicine and emerging industries focused law firm called Rudick Law Group, mm-hmm. and devoted myself to giving my career to the people who gave me my life. I would very much not be here today if it weren't for people like Erika and Andrew and both of you here on the screen with me. I would not have had the opportunities that I've had. And so it doesn't make any sense for me anymore as a lawyer to keep practicing law if it's not for you guys. So that's how I ended up here.
Oh, well, thank you. It's a beautiful story, actually. I'm not crying, Erika. You're crying. But no, that's a beautiful story, and I appreciate you sharing that. And that is a unique story to what most people we even hear now. Just between the two stories that we heard. That's a total different story. Even myself, I started smoking when I was like 14. Then I got caught by my Air Force dad, and he made me dig holes and shit for a couple weeks. I didn't touch it again until I got out the Army. So we all have our unique story, and that's really beautiful because you started in an area where you were trying to make change in certain areas, but then down the road you realized, shit, I'm in the wrong place. And then once you found your place, you're like, okay, this is it, and you've grown as a person as well too, and being someone that's from southern New Mexico, southeastern New Mexico, is very conservative as well. And so, breaking out of that kind of world and mindset sometimes really helps. And, it could go both ways. I don't know. I didn't grow up somewhere super liberal. So, I totally get it, like the fear of, they're going to find out you smoke the devil lettuce, and especially being from a small town, so I really appreciate you sharing that. and really appreciate your help, here in New Mexico and everything. And you're doing great stuff. But so far, everyone I've seen like in your comments and stuff in those posts, they've said nothing but great things about you. So it's always cool to see that. So yeah, it was. I was like, I was gonna show you that, but I think I got busy or something. But yeah, on the post and everything that I share, there's people like, oh, I love her, she's great. So you're doing a good job, and I think you're living up to what you set out to do.
Well, and I just want to add as a conclusion to all of that, that what I love most about plant medicine people, whether it comes through cannabis or psychedelics or something else, is that this community really does allow people to change their minds based on new information.
Yeah.
All of us have learned new information about how to grow cannabis, how to use cannabis in a more healthy way, what it is that we should be looking for or not looking for. All of us have seen laws passed that change the way that we evaluate our own personal use or run our businesses. And we've all been flexible enough to meet that.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest lesson I learned from people like all of you is that it's okay to change your mind. And it's okay to publicly change your mind and go, I used to think that this was the way I wanted to do it. Now I want to do it that way. That does not exist in the same way outside of this space. And I think it's something the entire world needs to learn from cannabis and from people in psychedelics.
Huh. I appreciate that. I think it's from the psychedelics part, getting humbled by psychedelics. Holy shit, that will humble you. So yeah, that's one thing that I think we all have experienced a little bit of getting humbled. So I appreciate that.
I think
last
also
part.
having this product, this is not a widget. This is a plant, and we are working for the plant. The plant is not work. I mean, it works for us as far as, but we're here for it. We're trying to have it thrive and help our friends have access.
Exactly.
And that's different than a lot of other capitalistic endeavors, So
yeah.
Caregiver to the
Well, a
plant.
recognition of what cannabis is starts with this recognition that this plant puts tremendous amounts of energy into producing cannabinoids that, it doesn't need to survive. Plants don't need to produce cannabinoids in order to continue to exist, but they do so anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And these things have profound effects on our nervous systems and also the nervous systems of other animals and other species. This is a perfect example of cross-species communication. This is something reaching out beyond itself, creating something that has different effects for something that it'll never really get to experience or understand.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself is humbling. That gets humble. When you look at this beautiful plant growing and you realize it doesn't know what it's like to smoke a joint. It'll never have that experience, but look at what it's growing and producing anyways.
Mm-hmm.
That starts to make you step away from this idea that we know everything and that we're starting from a place of superiority. We're just not.
Yeah, and it humbles us all the time with what we learn from it. Just what we discover all the time about the plant. It's like, this new compound came out. I'm like, well, shit, now I gotta learn something new. But I'm glad, because who knows what that compound holds, or what it can help with. So definitely, it humbles us all the time. It's like, oh, you think you know me? Hold on a second. What else I got in here? So no, I appreciate that. And thank you all three of you for giving some bit your background, your history and stuff like that. And it's cool to see the growth in the people and everything. With that being said, let's move on to the second topic of today, because that is the thing that we came here to talk about, even though I loved hearing all these stories. But there's a lot of stuff going on in the state right now, and especially with the cannabis stuff. And yesterday I did get confirmation that COVA and BioTrack, and in a second I'll give Annie and Erika the floor so they can talk about what they learned from BioTrack. But I talked to an operator yesterday who called COVA, and they had a question about, am I going to be able to use your service? Do I have to cancel whatever? And COVA told them, no, you're going to just operate as you normally would. And this is what I was told. This is not from me believing anything. This is just what I was told from them. They were told from COVA that they're going to be able to operate as normal. They're going to do all the migration in the background. When New York, changed their system, they work 16 hours a day, and they got it done, which that sounds like hell. Hope they're getting paid and compensated correctly. And you shouldn't see any issues, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Is that going to be the case? Normally it's not, but I have no clue. So that is what's being told to customers from companies like Cova. If you guys don't know who Cova is, they're a point of sale system company that kind of API ties their company into the track and trace system here in New Mexico, and they can do what they do on their little computer systems when they're checking you out at the dispensary.
Chad, what is API?
Oh man, I hope I don't get this wrong. It's application programming interface, I believe. It's pretty much just taking applications to talk to each other. So that way they can work together, and they're just two separate entities, but then they can talk and they can speak the same language essentially.
Okay, so many of these letters are getting thrown around right now, and I have no idea. So.
Oh, sorry if I am
Dumb it down for me.
If I need to break it down Barney style, let me know.
Well, let me also just give you
Please.
the secret sauce, right? People who work in technology, cybersecurity especially, speak in acronym nonsense. And the reason we speak in acronym nonsense is because there are just so many long names for everything. You have to develop an industry-specific shorthand. That industry-specific shorthand is terrible for communicating instructions for people. And frankly, I think that communication gap is a lot of where our fears arise when something like this happens. We're already in a fragile, highly regulated, constantly changing industry. And now we have people who speak from a totally different portion of experience in a totally different language saying, oh, by the way, don't worry about this thing that's going to change the way that you do business and also might require some changes or some suspension of operations for a few days.
Yeah. And that, what other industry do they really do that to in New Mexico as well? You know, and I'd like to really know. I'm curious because it kind of sucks that they do it to us, something that's so fragile to start out with, and we're so heavily taxed that, you know, they're going to take us down that way for so long. And yeah, that is a huge concern. You know, and that's something that even myself as a, you know, business person, I have to kind of halt things for a little bit because I don't want to mess my shit up either. You know, so luckily the harvest season isn't really here yet for us, so we're not going to be too busy because we just make cash rosin, you know, and do stuff like that. But other people, they're really going to feel it, you know, especially the dispensaries, you know, the retail location, Carver Family Farm. I'm sure you guys are going to feel that, you know, that's the case and everything. But right now, at least, you know, some people are getting answers, and it's not necessarily from the state, it's from the companies that they're paying. So luckily, some people are getting some answers somewhere. It's just, it sucks that all of this had to happen so suddenly, you know, and as Victoria said, you know, and people are getting, you know, acronyms and things thrown at them, like the token thing. You know, I've been hearing that again. You know, people are talking about the token that you're going to have to get from the state, and they're going to send it to you. People are like, I don't even know what a token is. Last time I used a token was at Peter Piper Pizza to play a game. You're like, what are you talking about? And so, you know, there's what's going on. Oh yeah, so someone in the comments just said that they love your guys' glass, Carver Family Farm. Justin down here in Las Cruces used to run a smoke shop. I think you guys know. But yeah, he loves your guys' glass and give you a shout out. So I want to make sure you mention that. But yeah, so that's the update that we got from Cova. Now I'm going to jump down to Erika and Annie. I'm going to give you ladies the floor, so that way you can tell us exactly what you learned from BioTrack, so people going forward know exactly what's going on. Because I don't think not many people were able to, you know, attend the thing. I tried and the link was broken, so I'm glad you were able to get in.
And we actually got the links to the notes and the webinars sent to us this morning, which I forwarded to you both also, so that, you know, when you have that extra spare time to listen in on how that's going to work. But I just wanted to give you guys a quick how this has transpired for Carver Family Farm and what we have been doing, what we're hoping to do to be ready for it, and just how we're trying to remain calm. Mm-hmm. And ask the questions like, what is API? And know that there are no stupid questions. I mean, people don't know what integrated pest management, IPM, is either. And so we have our own, you know, language and shorthand. So we ain't special. But when all of the talk about us moving to a state mandated track and trace system was coming, I reached out and spoke directly with Todd Stevens and had conversations with him about what we can expect and when's it coming. And of course, everything was vague. And I mean, when you're designing a new track and trace system, you have to be vague until you're not. We get that. And in reaching out to them, we got a meeting. I spoke to him, Zoom to Zoom, and they have been available to us. And for that, I appreciate. There, of course, as when we got the email after 6 on our Friday, 2 Fridays ago or whatever it was, saying, okay, it's coming in 15 days, get your inventories ready, let's go. It definitely felt a little undercommunicated. And I think that, I matters not. Now it is, what do you do now?
Yeah.
And so with that information, I forwarded the email to Annie. Annie and I had a plan about, okay, so if they're going to do the retail part, then this is what we need to start focusing on. Because as I mentioned earlier, we have cultivation, manufacture, and retail all under one roof here. So we're going to go through each one of the migrations with them in the separate designated times. And so what we needed to know was, where do we start? They're giving us the guidance to start with getting our inventory ready in retail. What does that mean? And then the little catch points that we were a little more concerned about than not, which was we're not going to have access to labs for at least 6 days. We're not going to be able to manifest our product out to our wholesale customers around the state, who frankly is what keeps us in business. We have a wonderful regular customer base that comes in here, but as y'all know, we are not centrally located in Albuquerque. So our wholesale accounts are very much important to us. And then just the general logistics of how this is all going to work, and what can we do to front load? What can we do to just make sure that we can survive over the course of the migration? Yesterday, we attended our first BioTrack webinar, which I held down retail while 8 of our 13 total staff huddled around 2 different computers and listened to the training. And basically, we wanted anybody that touches BioTrack to be part of the conversation. And we even had a staff person in here who doesn't touch BioTrack, but has been following all of this all of the communication drops on Instagram, and was concerned about what it meant for us as a company. And so he sat through it as well. And that to me felt more like making sure that our community, our family, had all of the information that we could potentially give to them. So there wasn't another break in the communication and transparency. And so when I'm thinking about, so how has it impacted us? Well, I had 8 employees that would have been doing other things for our business, sitting and doing this webinar. And so of course that takes away, but you have to, it's value added too, for maintaining the fact that they're going to recognize terms when they come through, or if something gets glitched up, they'll be like, oh, but do you remember when they said this? Or so we've created a team that they can help each other. I unfortunately missed the majority of the webinar because I was working in retail. So, but thankfully we were busy during that time, so I didn't get to see it. But I do have my Miss Annie here that has just the compliance brain anyway. And we figured we have the actual training manuals opened up next to her, so that she can, if there's any questions that you guys think of, or if anything comes up in the chat, we can see if we can scroll to real quick and get you quick answers based off of what BioTrack has given us as things to watch out for. And again, we use BioTrack and we use BioTrack POS. Mm-hmm. So we don't have any other integrations, and we're getting the same message from BioTrack that other person got from COVA, where they're here for us. We're still going to be working with their situation, and we're all in this together, which has been a nice message.
Awesome. Okay. So I appreciate that. And Annie, please go ahead, share away.
I was going to say, I think originally when we heard that this transition was starting, it was kind of a fear of learning a whole new system, because even being in cannabis for these past few years, BioTrack doesn't necessarily work for us. Kind of the people that are probably building it aren't the people that are using it. Mm-hmm. And so it makes it a challenge for us. Throughout the years, we've found our workarounds, and we've been in contact with the state, and what do we do? What can we do? And we've found ways to make BioTrack work for us. So the initial fear was like, oh crap, we're going to have to learn something completely new. So yesterday at the training, it was nice to know and see that BioTrack is staying. It's not leaving. It's the back end side that's changing. And functionality, it was nice to see, is not changing so much. There are some small changes with
And this is for like the POS side, right? Not for the track and trace side, right?
well, the track and trace side is the main one that's changing as far as I understand to this point. That was another nice stress relief, was that our POS system and the way that we make sales is not going to be affected by this. We'll be able to continue through the transition, work in our retail. Unfortunately, looks like wholesale might be on hold just because of the transfer issue. But we've been working really hard trying to get as many wholesales as we can in advance, pushing them through fulfillment faster, trying to get them out so that they don't have that
Lapse.
So that was kind of nice. As far as like, there's been some things that are going to make it easier for us. As far as functionality in the farm, maybe before, if you made a mistake in BioTrack with inventories, harvesting, curing, things like that, you can take that back. As a previous, you could not do that. So that's kind of nice functionality wise, because the plants, everything's always changing. Nothing's ever, solid until it gets in a bed in the room. But that was kind of nice. Knowing the POS wasn't changing, that was nice. One thing that was kind of unfortunate and bizarre to me is that testing labs are no longer going to be reporting the test results through BioTrack. It's going to be on the vendor that did the testing. So like, we're going to input our own results on products, which I'm not sure what that's about, but that was kind of weird. And it's also going to be very time consuming for us because it's a lot of more data input that we didn't have to do before.
It was done in the background.
So mostly what I got from it is like, cool, there's not a lot to be afraid of or fearful of in this transition. But again, we know from past experience that things don't always go over smoothly or turn out the way they anticipate or we anticipate, but we're always ready for whatever changes are going to be made. The big thing about Carver is we want to do things by the book. We want to do it exactly how the state wants it and how we should. One for Carver's licenses to keep them safe, but two for patients and people that are consuming our stuff. I want to be transparent and just but yeah, that's kind of what I took from that yesterday.
Awesome. And maybe some people will, it'll calm their nerves a little bit because of, what's going on, and maybe they didn't get to see the training. I'll see if I can post a link for the training on my story later today. Maybe some operators will be able to go and check it out and watch it themselves if they're still going to continue to use BioTrack for the POS system. That's one thing I wanted to clarify to make sure people understood is this was the I didn't want people to get confused to think, well, why are we doing this new track and trace if BioTrack isn't going anywhere, but it's on the POS side, which is the same thing as COVA. So for those of you who might be confused with like the technologia, jargon and everything, yeah, they're pretty much just point of sale systems, and that's all that BioTrack is being kept on. Other than on the medical side, a couple weeks ago, I updated you guys on this. Here in New Mexico, they are going to stay with BioTrack, but that's just going to be for the patient registry and for your units. It's not going to be anything that anybody has to use. So that's one of the caveats I wanted to throw in there too, is that BioTrack will be used by our medical program still. Is there anything else that you maybe caught from the training that maybe it would help somebody or kind of get them, a little less, nerves feeling weird?
They added more options for what types of products we're creating,
yeah, they
right?
did do that.
Okay. Because I know there was concern about like joints, like, well, what am I gonna be able to do with joints? And
right.
like the testing thing with that.
So far from what I've understood, there is no added testing requirements for like products that have been built from like, we call them a mother lot. So like a large harvest, we build out joints, pre-packed flour, we do bulk flour. From what I understand, it still stands as you test the main lot of flour and that follows through with all the products. You don't have to continue testing individual products. That's what I understood from that. There's new functionality as far as prior, it was very limited on intermediate and end products that we could create. They've opened up more categories so that we can have different end products, including infused pre-rolls, other flour options, other concentrate options. Before, like for example, for us, we do solventless extraction, live rosin. Was not an option prior, so everything we made had to be bubble hash, which technically was not bubble hash, but it was the closest option in the system. So there is some more options functionality wise for converting in BioTrack, which is really nice. You can have the products more accurately displayed in there. Let's see.
So more or less, as you go through the, like, let's say when you wash, you have the flour and then it's in the system as flour, and then you wash it and then you put it through the freeze dryer and you essentially have the bubble hash, and then when you squish it, it turns into the rosin. So through the whole way, we can tell them exactly what it is the whole way through, right? Make sure
essentially that's what they said we will be able to do. Yeah, which we haven't.
We really don't know until what, next week?
But yeah. So that's been awesome. Also combining and using multiple products to create one end product. Sometimes, you couldn't combine like your keef with some extract or something to make another one. Now you can combine more intermediate products or beginning products to create a final end product, which is better functionality for us as well.
I agree.
There was something about the wasting, right? Or the
for waste processing, they couldn't really answer that because that's like a state question.
Okay.
Yeah, for how the state's going to deal with how we need to document and record waste. But they made it easier in BioTrack functionality wise when you're harvesting to have a like a dialog box at the harvest where you could enter your waste. As prior, you'd have to go back in and separately do waste. So
and auditing, right? The inventory, if you needed to audit up or down, it's not going to be like mistake, whatever. They don't have the drop down boxes to how to categorize the inventory change. They only want you to enter in the details as to what's happening.
Okay. Huh. Interesting. Okay.
So it's in a way they have made it easier to adjust inventories. Before it was like inventory audit, theft, seizure, which for the most part we never dealt with theft or seizure, but now there's just not an option for that. You just have to put good notes for whatever you're adjusting. They did change manifesting and transferring products to other licenses, which I'm not totally clear on it because they've kind of gave you the option to either manifest and send to another license or to not. And I don't understand that fully yet, but for example, we could just transfer products to another license without generating a manifest, which is the travel paperwork that legally says who's carrying it and everything. They've made it an option to not have that, so I'm not sure what that means or why. We're going to continue using the manifest, of course, moving forward. But they did change that. Not sure what that's going to entail, but they've made more or another way to, I don't know. I don't see how maybe on the backside, because I'm trying to think of like how you would see these transfers when I don't know. So
Huh.
Well, and I think you've hit on something really important that comes up in every technological transaction in business, not just cannabis. But that is when there are technology updates and changes, it doesn't fall necessarily on the technology company or the technology itself to make you compliant with the law. And so if you see within a given platform or tool that you can do something that you know legally isn't right or that you think legally isn't right, the responsibility is still on you to comply with the law, even though you might not be forced into doing so by a given workflow. It's a huge problem that we have throughout business, but especially in businesses like cannabis, where a lot of products are being built purpose specific to the industry, and there's not a lot of like alternative programs to go compare something to. We often find gaps like this, and it really does fall to the operator to make sure that they understand what they're responsible for. Basic principles of governance of any kind of software that you're using within your business. Ultimately, you are responsible for your actions, regardless of what the software says or does.
That makes sense. And the CCD, even with BioTrack, would say just because you could do it doesn't mean it's legal. So that's
Right.
one thing you have to keep in mind too. Just because you may find something doesn't necessarily mean you're supposed to do it. So
Yeah.
I think that's one thing people need to keep in mind too. So I appreciate that point.
Well, yeah, it's something that we talk about a lot just in running a business in general, right? You're going to see some terms as this starts to roll out that you may have never seen before. You may have no idea what they're talking about. When we see API, for example, we're talking about an application program interface. That's a set of instructions that tell a program what to do based on a user's use of an application. So when you're sitting down entering stuff into your new seed to sale tracking system, and those instructions are sent over to the program and it connects, that's what we're talking about. And so when we say, oh, there's this integration that's going to help you migrate your inventory over, that's all that is. The same goes with like a security token. You're going to hear the phrase security token and you're going to be like, I don't want to go to Chuck E. Cheese. That sounds gross. And immediately, not really something to worry about. This is another use of technology language being transplanted on top of an industry.
Yeah.
The security token is just a tool that allows for the verification of your identity in a way other than, say, directly entering a password. Security tokens can be physical. You have, say, a key fob for your apartment. That's a security token that you're scanning to get in. It may also be a multi-factor authentication app. You might have some software that you have to enter a password into outside of just the application that you're entering to be able to get in and get those things. That's how that security translates over into this industry. However, the technology designer and the technology itself is not the licensee. They're not the one who signed their name on the dotted line and said that I'm going to handle this stuff responsibly.
Yeah.
We are living in a really confusing regulatory environment right now. Cannabis is currently Schedule 1, Schedule 3, and unscheduled, depending on whether or not it is considered adult use cannabis, medical cannabis, or hemp. We currently have post-hearing briefing filed by the DEA that says that cannabis should not be Schedule 1, that there is a recognized medical use, but that change has not happened completely yet. And so we have all of these things happening on a national level that make even thinking about running a cannabis business at the local level really confusing. Then you throw in the fact that many people, everyone say hi to my husband.
Hey.
He's bringing me medicine because baddies have chronic illnesses too. So on the federal level, we have all this stuff going on. Then we have a number of people who've applied for their DEA licensure as a Schedule 3 retailer or producer. Those people are starting to get inspections while this is going on. They're starting to really see what it's like to comply federally. And then at this local level, we have this big transition happening. And it makes everything seem really, really scary. If I can leave you guys with anything from my perspective on this, want it to be go back to basics. You're the licensee. You signed your name on the dotted line. You said that you were going to comply with the state. If you are going through this application and seeing things that you could do differently than you could before, consider whether or not doing those things is in fulfillment of the promises you made when you signed on the dotted line. Because it's not going to be the seed to sale tracking system that gets fined. It's not going to be them who the regulator shows up at. It's going to be you, and it's going to be your operation, and it's going to be you and your employees and your customers that suffer if something goes wrong. Go back to your own agency. You are the operator. Act like it.
100%, and thank you for that, because I have told people, you know, the programmers and the CCD aren't the ones that get in trouble when our information isn't correct. It's us. And so that's one thing that I've stressed with people. Even when I did the Albuquerque Journal article, it says in there when I gave the quote, it says they're not the ones who get in trouble, it's us. And you know, so yeah, it's
your
very
computer
important.
is not getting rated.
No,
your computer is not getting rated. You are.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And I hate to like put it in those extreme terms, but I think it's important for people to remember the very, very serious nature of what it means to work in this industry. Regardless of all of the progress we've made with cannabis politically, some cannabis is still Schedule 1 as of the date of this recording in this country. We still have people in jail, whether directly for cannabis charges or because their sentences for other charges were extended on the basis of a cannabis conviction.
Mm-hmm.
We have a criminalized state around cannabis, and these transitions take on greater significance and fear and real worry from people because of the seriousness of that regulatory environment.
Yeah.
So if you're scared, this podcast is not some sort of indictment of that fear. We're not here to tell you that you're being ridiculous or that you're worried about nothing. That's not true. You have every reason to be worried. But the way to start handling that fear proactively is to start thinking about the things that you do have control of, which is that you as the operator have the ability to learn how to use this new system and have the ability to use it correctly. Is that a fair or unfair burden? I think that's something that there's a lot of debate about. But you can do it. I know you can do it because you've survived in this industry this long, and we all know how unbelievably difficult it was for you to get here.
Yeah, and
I do also want to say, like, I have not had. It's hard to think that all of the obstacles and hurdles that we've had to endure to this point hasn't been because they actually never wanted us in the first place. That's where I'm stuck in the middle of this. Like, do y'all even want us to survive this? And if so, how can we do better to work together as a team, whether we're regulators or operators or patients or whoever it is, to get through this to the other side? I can also say that of all of the struggles that we've endured here at Carver Family Farm, if I call CCD and say, hey, my license is coming up for renewal and I just got hit with I don't have the correct certificate of occupancy, and I do not think that I'm going to be able to turn this around fast enough to be able to be in compliance for when it's time to renew my license. They worked with me. Keep me in the loop, Erika. Keep me posted. And they got way more information than I think they wanted to. But every single time I had communication with the city, I forwarded it to them. Like, I'm working on this. I'm doing the best that I can. This is where we are. So I really feel like they didn't give us an option for a beta test as 1 or 2 or 3 individuals. They're beta testing all of us at the same time. We all should be feeding back.
Yeah, 100%. This is pretty much a public test.
Yeah. And with that, we are giving them all the information about how we are really trying to stay in compliance, but XYZ.
I really do hope, and I feel that there may be some wiggle room that they'll give us, a little bit of leeway because of this transition. And, you know, they did do that at the beginning when, you know, legalization started. They kind of gave us wiggle room to figure things out. I kind of feel that they may be a little more lenient with us on certain things, like, okay, this and this got messed up, you know, where can we fix it too? And I hope that's the conversation we have. Hey, I messed up here, but if it was this way, I may not do that again. Or if it was this way, I wouldn't be confused and it would be an easier process. I really hope that's the conversations that we have going forward. And I really hope people don't start yelling, you know, just at the top of their lungs that, you know, this is bullshit, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing we can do about the past, what's happened. There's nothing we can do about the timeline we've given. But what we can do is drive on with the mission and try to figure out how to get through this, really, you know, and hopefully the next time it changes.
I also want people to check on their neighbors, because I missed, this is going to be a very interesting segment to the next conversation if we have time to do it, but I missed the email from US Eagle yesterday.
Oh no.
And I woke up to learning about the banking switch this morning from a Albuquerque Journal article. And I think that there's probably a lot of small businesses, smaller even than us, who are not super involved, who are not following legislation, who are not calling Todd Stevens, who are just trying to grow some really nice weed and sell it to their community, that might not have any idea that this shit's going on.
Right.
Because if you're not getting a direct call, I didn't get a direct call yesterday from my personal banker to say, hey, Erika, heads up, before you see this come through email or come through the Albuquerque Journal or through Instagram rumor mill. And we need to check on our neighbors. We need to check on the small businesses in our communities right now and make sure that they at least know that this is going on, because that is the one thing that with CCD, I had to communicate to them what was happening with me. They weren't checking on me to make sure I was okay.
Yeah.
So that's something, I don't know how to do it at this point, but it was just something that, okay, now y'all do that.
Well, that does make a lot of sense. Like, one thing that I see working with a lot of clients across this industry in different locations is this kind of similar belief that they are being granted some sort of favor for owning and running a business and employing people in their community and existing, that they are somehow the recipient of special treatment and therefore aren't entitled to the same level of respect and investment and excitement that other business owners get. I think that ties all the way back to the original stigma of the idea that cannabis is somehow, or intoxication other than alcohol is somehow morally wrong, that we deal with throughout this country. And we know that our country has a history of, say, using the word marijuana specifically to incite racist fears and get people to view the plant very differently. This context that we talk about with stigma and advocacy goes all the way down to how it feels to file a business application.
Yeah.
Or how it feels to like file a request for more information, or to call and ask that somebody tell you how they're going to treat your hard-earned money. The fact of the matter is the cannabis industry really suffers from a perception at large outside of the industry that the industry's existence is somehow a favor to it. That it was not something earned, that it did not come from advocacy and hard work, but it's somehow an exception to the rules that we all have to follow, and these people are not to be taken seriously as business owners and entrepreneurs. That pain and heartache and real effect of living under that affects the way that everything rolls out in cannabis. It affects the way that we perceive any change. It affects the way that we interact with any other business or anyone outside of the industry. And it's incredibly real. I think it's important for us to keep that in mind as we decide not only what we think about a given policy or whether to engage with a given politician, but also how we talk to and feel about each other as we go through these experiences together. Like Erika said, check on your neighbor, because they're going through those same feelings as you, and their own heartache and pain about how to run their business comes from a very similar place to you. The only people that can really understand what it's like in America, in the land of the entrepreneur and the capitalist, to be treated as if running a business is a favor, is somehow an exception, is really this industry. We have that in common, and we have to embrace that we have that in common if we're going to get through these hard transitions together.
100%. And thank you for that. You know, some people probably needed to hear that, and they maybe needed to hear some encouraging words, because I've been talking to a lot of people, and there's a lot of pissed off people right now.
Which is fair. The pissed off, the anger, the sad, the angry is fair.
Yeah.
We all grew up in a country that promised us that if we wanted to start a business and see if it would succeed, we could do so in the free market.
Yeah.
And this is the only industry, even working in psychedelics, where I continually see people treated as if their existence is somehow a gift
Yeah.
rather than something that they've worked incredibly hard to create.
And they treat us more like a burden, and that's not fair.
Mhm.
You know, and I really hate when that happens. I'm like, dude, you gave us this opportunity. What the hell? Like, you know, I'm just trying to do this right.
Yeah. We pay
Um,
taxes, we employ people,
Mhm.
we make money, we make the state a better place. And our existence, just like any other economy, has its good effects and bad effects. And those are not unique because it's cannabis. That is just what happens with having a business.
100%. Before we move on to the important part, the very last one, and I do want to get to the Eagle one. Erica, if you want to, talk about that really quick. I do, however, want to make sure, Annie, did you get everything to us about the training that you got, or is there anything else you want to talk about?
I think that I covered most of it. I would like to say, though, that if people are having really high anxiety or stress about this transition, if you haven't done a little research, called some people, talked to people, got information, do it, because it really did relieve a lot of stress for us, particularly this training. I don't know if they can contact BioTrek to get a copy of the training or something, but just watching that really brought a lot of stress down in the whole building in general, because I think all the staff was kind of feeling it, whether they use BioTrek daily or not. But it was able to bring this fear and anxiety down within the building. And I mean, we're ready and prepared for whatever they need to do. We've been working the last couple of days, and Monday will be our last day that we're finalizing all of our inventories and preparing everything for the merge. And so as long as you prepare, be proactive, look for information, talk to people, I think that anxiety and stress and fear can come down for everybody. Like I said, we're ready for it. All you can do is be positive and just move forward. And I guess that's what I have to say.
Well, thank you for
Yeah.
that. You know, I like to say Semper Gumby and driving on with the mission. You know, like that's just what you have to do in this industry. Got to stay flexible and just got to drive on. There's nothing you can do. So Erica, yeah, if you want, please share the bank stuff, and then we'll get on to the last topic.
Okay, she wants to stay.
Yeah, sure. You're more than welcome.
She's
Please.
obviously she is on our bank account as a user and somebody who also runs and drops off account deposits and things like that. So I guess basically what is happening is that US Eagle did post publicly through Albuquerque Journal, and then also they did send us an email yesterday saying that they will no longer be having cannabis. The Airy Group is no longer going to be in business, which was the cannabis handling section of US Eagle, and that all operations will continue as usual until October 31st.
Oof.
So bill pay, deposits, all things having to do with your account right now is going to stay as is until October 31st. So what I had done previously, and I'm going to cut all of the context short on this, but last year I had asked US Eagle many times if they could extend a reduced fee for micro licensed businesses and extend that to us, because Carver, just us, we were paying about $1,000 a month just to have the administrative fee of processing our bank things. I'm not even really sure, but anyway. And although they'd say, we're looking into it, Erika, we're looking into it, nothing came to fruition. And then there was a Cannabis Bankers Association symposium that happened here in New Mexico in Albuquerque, where a bunch of bankers from all over the country came in that are doing cannabis banking. And I learned that we are a CRB, a cannabis related business. Speaking of acronyms, if you hear CRB, that's what that is. And that we're a high risk, and that it costs so much for them to actually have a cannabis banking portion of their bank. And right now, and is still, as my understanding, is the majority of the banks, if not all of the ones that are able to hold our accounts, are credit unions. And that's because those are not FDIC backed federally. What's the rest of the DIC? Veronica, Victoria, like
Veronica.
Veronica. Sorry.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Who are you again?
Oh my gosh, somebody did that to me the other day. It's the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. And the FDIC is a government agency that essentially it exists to protect your money if a bank fails. It insures people's money up to $250,000 per person and per account type in the case of a bank failure. So if you ever see like FDIC insured next to your bank, that's what they're talking about.
And that's the primary thing, because it's federally backed, is that's why those banks can't or won't work with us, is my understanding.
Yeah. And I think the word won't is really important there. We see a lot of advocacy in the space around the term safe banking or the Safe Banking Act. And basically the point of the Safe Banking Act, and this could be an entire episode on its own, but basically the point of the Safe Banking Act is to make it less legislatively and regulatorily risky for FDIC insured banks to engage with cannabis businesses that are operating legally in their state. There are a lot of reasons why that act, in the opinion of many advocates, falls short of solving the problem Erika is articulating here. Nothing is ever going to force institutions to engage with these types of businesses. Safe banking is not necessarily going to remove the administrative costs and the risk related costs that they're talking about when they say this is why I'm choosing not to engage with cannabis businesses. And so there is a lot of motivation behind a lot of advocates that safe banking does not go far enough, and that in fact, if we want to solve Erika's problem, our focus has to be much more strongly on legalization, pure legalization, legal like lettuce legalization, legal like any other agricultural product legalization.
Yeah, on the federal
if
level.
we ever truly want to see real safe banking.
100%.
It's unfortunate that that's the position we're in, because there are definitely some financial institutions that, were we to pass safe banking, absolutely would probably change their policies based on how the money shook out. But what we see over and over again is that risk makes things not profitable, and that there is no real risk quite like illegality. And that goes all the way from risks to our persons and our own safety and our own bodies, down to the safety of our money and the safety and stability of our businesses.
Which is
I also
very.
just want to
Go ahead, finish.
Thanks. I also just want to remind everyone that there's never been a war on banks. And so safe banking is by no means the greatest tragedy that has arisen from the criminalization of drugs, but it is an after effect of that. And so when you think about your own personal advocacy and what it is that you're fighting for, encourage you to think about the trickle down effects, like how illegality affects an operator like Erika.
100%.
And another piece of this situation is, and I've talked to a lot of you guys about this, is we were able to get the New Mexico Finance Authority micro business loan in late 2022, early 2023, which was something that NMFA worked with, I guess, the state to come up with this loan process. But in writing the loan, NMFA required anybody that was applying for the loan to be a member of US Eagle. And so with that, which at the time we all thought we only had 2 banks to choose from at the time, possibly 3. So it wasn't like it was this major leap for those of us who were like, oh, okay, well, this is just another reason to go with this one. And then last year, after I had basically decided that I was not okay with the fact that they kept saying, no, we can't figure out how to get a reduced fee for micros, yet I had to bank with them to have this loan. I went to this experience. It's the cannabis experience now, but it was a symposium last year. Same people. But I had gone to that symposium and met all of these bankers from all over the country who are like, "There's no, yes, you can work with us, absolutely. You all actually don't have a federal vault or one of the big vaults that they hold money in New Mexico, so they're sending all of your money to Colorado or Arizona or whatever. So, because they don't have these mega vaults here in New Mexico. So when we send our money, if we have it picked up by one of the couriers, it ultimately ends up going out of state anyway. So having a branch here in New Mexico isn't necessarily something that we really need to have. I can understand that if you're in Albuquerque, it's been something that was convenient for us, and we could actually save money by not paying for the courier and drop it off ourselves in a what we feel is a safe environment. But anyway, I'm locked into this loan. I have to stay with US Eagle. They're not willing to drop my rates. Well, I'm going to at least post publicly what the rates are for all of the banks that I have an option if I wasn't in this loan to go with. And so I made a spreadsheet of all of the banks that I met at this symposium, and then also just looked up, just Googled what other banks are there in the country that would potentially work with me. And I did a spreadsheet of what the fees were, what they required for courier, what their compliance was, if you had to use Green Check, which US Eagle made sure that all of their members had to work through Green Check, which is a third-party compliance program. And I put it all on a spreadsheet, and I gave it to the New Mexico Cannabis Trade Group, CANM, and made it public, and anybody that wanted to have access to it could have access to it. And so I have not updated that, and I plan to update it like in the next few days to update what's going on. And then also I've kind of put out the word to all of my now banker friends, because I've gone to a couple of these now, and said, hey, all, if you guys want to talk to your powers that be and see if you can put together a New Mexico refugee rate for us, I'd really appreciate that. So I've already started them hopefully coming up with some good rates for us, rather than, again, going back to thinking like, oh, well, we have to go to the other one bank that's in New Mexico is our only other option, which I don't say that the other bank that's here in New Mexico is a bad option, but I want them to fight to give us the best rate, because
you want it to operate like a business.
Yeah.
You want it to operate like a business.
They actually are privileged to have us as their account.
Exactly.
They're making a decent amount of money off of us, and they have had entire discussionary panels at these events as to whether or not we actually qualify as a high risk member, because we are so highly regulated.
Yeah. Regulated, documented. You just want it to function like a business. Every single business in America goes and compares its financial options and chooses the best rates and the best service for it. Why we are not doing this for an agricultural product is very complicated.
And why they're not extending accounts to the staff and the people that are in this industry to grow their member base blows my effing mind, because they've already established with these people's bosses that this is a safe place to bank as somebody who is a marijuana user. And Andrew and I haven't been able to get a good mortgage rate or whatever if we want to refi our house or try and get into another space or something like that, because more than 20% of our income comes from cannabis. So these banks are starting to realize that they have access to us, who they know are good, reputable people that have been working with them for over 5 years, and we can vouch for our employees as a good person to give a loan to. And they're dumping us.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? What the fuck?
So the
once
banking...
again, we're all being treated like our existence is some sort of favor that we've been given. As much as we talk about America as a meritocracy in which anybody can work hard and succeed, I think the cannabis industry is really proof of how stigma in society can screw that up. You run an agricultural business. You have a farm. You literally have dirt under your fingernails. You're one of the hardest working Americans that exists. You don't have some silly email job. You're out here doing real work. And yet you're being treated as if it is somehow a favor for someone to charge you thousands of dollars and you to hand it to them for the privilege of purchasing it. And like, basic financial banking rights are not some sort of Hermes bag. We're not over here begging for the opportunity to buy a Birkin. We're begging for the opportunity to behave like normal business owners in American capitalism. It is absolutely ridiculous what you're going through. I'm so incredibly sorry that you're going through it, but you have handled it better than anyone I have ever seen. And I think everyone who watches this needs to know just how hard you work and just how amazing it is that you're able to guide your employees through this bullshit over and over and over again and keep your community safe.
Thank you.
That is what it means to work in cannabis.
And you're also providing free material and information to people too on top of it. So it's not just, I'm going to benefit from this. You want others to benefit from it too. And that's something I appreciate too as an advocate, you know, and so that's great. And we appreciate that, dude. That's awesome. It sucks that you're going through that, but I appreciate through that, more people will get information to them as well. And I'll share that information once you get it updated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But that's not just the kind of cannabis licensee we want. That's the kind of business owner we want everywhere.
Yeah.
In every industry. And it is
100%.
absolutely ridiculous for someone who conducts themselves in that way to be treated as if their money is some sort of favor that someone is accepting.
Yeah, and that's something that the banks have thought about us for a long time, and it needs to change. So we're getting the episode's getting a little long. I'm sorry, ladies. I know you guys got a lot to do. We'll go through this last part really quickly. Thank you so much, Erika, for that update and everything. And I really hope something changes in that front, because the patients are really going to suffer in the end too as well.
I do know that there are hemp companies that are also getting dumped too. So
I've been seeing that. You're right. Yes.
So it's there. It extends further, and if there's so many reasons why we shouldn't be on different sides, and that it really would help us to come together to try and speak on the plant and not on the product.
Yeah.
And so that's
I'll also leave it with this for any advocates out there listening. Psilocybin producer applications have just opened in the state of New Mexico through the Department of Health. If you think that cannabis and hemp are going to have these problems, but the medical psilocybin program somehow is not, I encourage you to rethink that stance. If you care about plant medicine, period, whether it's cannabis, psychedelics, or any other form of people being able to connect with their own health, this is a time to get organized and start advocating.
100%, and that's coming up soon. And I appreciate you mentioning that, because it totally slipped my mind. And, I meant to mention that. So thank you so much. And you're the person that, really made me aware that was happening, and all the information you gave yesterday on LinkedIn. That was great. I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what people need to know. So don't think it's going to be puppy dog kisses and unicorn farts when that happens. It's going to have its own issues with the rollout, just how this track and trace is going to have its own issues. So we'll talk about the last thing on this. There could be legal challenges to, the track and trace stuff. We all know that, a lot of people were asking for it, where's the lawsuits? As of right now, are there any lawsuits, Victoria?
So I actually just looked on the court filing websites. I did a New Mexico wide search for all of the courts that are enrolled in that service, and there is nothing right now. It is 1:45 p.m. on August 21st at this moment when this is being recorded. The thing about a lawsuit is it doesn't exist till it does. Mm-hmm. The second it's filed, then it's real, then it's in the works, then we all get to follow it and know what's happening. But for right now, there's only this fact that multiple ones of us on this call have heard from different sources that people are thinking about pursuing legal challenges and maybe filing lawsuits either today or on Monday. So if that is something that you're interested in, I really encourage you to go to caselookup.nmcourts.gov. That is a public resource where you can type in, say, the name of a government organization or government agency and search and see if any lawsuits have been filed naming it as a defendant. You can also search certain plaintiffs if you're hearing things and you think somebody might be filing a lawsuit. And that will let you know what is in the public record and allow you to see what is in the public record. It's very, very important when we discuss lawsuits that we discuss what is happening in public and not what we're hearing in private, because the only arguments courts get to decide on are the ones that are made in those filings.
Yeah, and based
Is
on
there-
fact.
Yeah. Is there any chance, Victoria, if it does get filed today or Monday, that anything would happen before the Tuesday rollout
I think
happens?
that's a really interesting question, and it's one that depends entirely on how it's filed and also how the court receives that filing. It's highly likely in a situation like this where we have a firm deadline, we have a date when something's going to happen, that we would see something filed called an injunction, and it might be accompanied by something called a temporary restraining order, or a TRO. A TRO is kind of like an automatic, think of it as like a flag, throw it on the football field to stop the action right now, temporarily, while we figure out what's going on or what the penalty is going to be. So when a TRO gets filed, often courts act on that really, really quickly. So you might see a temporary restraining order be put in place, pausing the rollout for a couple of days while a hearing gets set on an injunction or something like that. You also might not see that. The thing about filing a lawsuit or filing a potential injunction or a TRO is that you don't know how the court is going to rule until they rule on it. So it's entirely possible that a filing would happen and then we would see the temporary pause and we would see the court set a hearing date. Or we might see nothing happen and the rollout might be happening while this litigation, if there is litigation, is happening in the background. Both things are possibilities, and I think no one at this point on 1:48 p.m. on Friday, August 21st, should be planning on the rollout being stopped at this point. You should be treating this as if it's going to go forward for your own safety. And then also watching the news, watching the court filings, watching to see if something happens that affects you. This is unfortunately one of those situations where we all have to hurry up and wait. We have to get ready as if it's going to happen, and then also pay attention to the fact that it might not.
100%. And that's what I've been telling people too, is regardless of getting, hints of a possible lawsuit, you should be reading the manuals. You should be getting ready. You shouldn't be kicking back like, oh, this lawsuit's going to go. We have no clue what's going to happen if a lawsuit even gets put in. Doesn't matter what you do when you put the lawsuit in. It's up to the courts at that point. And so you're at the mercy of the courts, and it's not up to you anymore. And so you can't rely on that. And we can't rely on that right now, especially with having the information that there's nothing put in right now. Friday, how many hours? I know you're counting, Victoria. How many hours do we have?
I was joking the other day, and I was like, we have like 12 business hours. But we really do. Speaking as a former litigator, the thing that always scares me when I hear lawsuit rumors, and I'm not just talking about this one, I'm talking about every single time I've ever heard a rumor that someone's going to file an injunction or somebody's going to file a lawsuit, is that I worked for courts for a long time. I was responsible for running to the clerk's office and begging someone to stamp something and begging someone to give me a hearing date. And the fact of the matter is, timing often matters just as much as substance. And we don't know what the court's timing looks like.
Yeah.
We don't know if the court is going to act on a TRO if they get it late in the day on a Friday before a weekend. We don't know if we'll have a decision on that before courts reopen on Monday. We don't know when a hearing might be set. We don't even know if someone's actually going to file a lawsuit until it's filed. And so I often encourage people to, if you are concerned about something and worried about something and you're preparing to file a lawsuit, do those preparations. Absolutely do it as if it's going to move forward. But I tell my own clients, much to the detriment of my bank account, that they should not be counting on me and counting on the court to change reality as it exists right now. The reality we have right now, sitting here on this podcast, is that on Tuesday we got to roll out. So we got to be ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
I do not encourage you to spend your weekend thinking, oh my God, Monday we're going to get some filing that's going to change what I have to do this week. I encourage you to move ahead as if you need to take care of this until you receive definitive proof that you don't need to be worried about this rollout.
100%. And that's going to come in the form of not a rumor. It's going to be definitive information.
Yes.
And if you go to the website that, Victoria, and I'll try to get that information out to you guys as well too, because I have used that website. If it's not on something like that, it's more than likely not either going to happen, or it's not true, or it's just not something that we're going to see in the future. And, I've heard people like, oh, this is going to cost us money. This is going to put people out of business. I get it. I get the concerns, but there's nothing we can do about that right now other than Semper Gumby and drive on with the mission and wait. That's the shitty part. Next time, I really hope that they are more proactive with talking to the industry, working with us, getting some of us to maybe experiment with it and work with it and give them some feedback and work directly with the industry. I really hope that's the case. It's unfortunate it didn't happen this time, but there's nothing we can do about that now. So I really just hope that, it's as smooth a rollout as we can get, we could possibly imagine. But yeah, I'm not, even if the lawsuit goes in, I'm not hoping on that. I'm not betting on that. I'm going to continue preparing for this change that comes on Tuesday, just a few days from now. So definitely, I'm going to take Victoria's advice for sure as well. And I'm going to continue driving on with the mission. Erika, do you have anything?
No, chilling.
I'm gonna end on a little bit of a joke, and it's a lame lawyer joke, and I encourage better lawyer jokes in the comments. But there's this joke among lawyers that only rich people bet on lawsuits.
Right.
Because only rich people can afford to bet on lawsuits.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, most of us, myself included, are never going to have the financial resources and the flexibility to just assume that things are going to change in our favor because a piece of paper was filed with a court.
Yeah.
While the filers of this lawsuit and these plaintiffs might go on to do great things, if a lawsuit is filed, they might do wonderful things for the industry. We can't bet on that unless we are rich enough to absorb the consequences. So unless you are out there watching this from your throne made of gold, looking over your stacks of money, highly, highly encourage you to not bet on a lawsuit.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Well, that's everything I have for this episode. Victoria, do you have anything else before we end today?
I don't. Thank you so much, Chad.
Of course, thank you. Erika, what about you? Anything else?
I did want to let y'all know that I'm going to be in DC the first week in September talking to cannabis banking people. And basically, I've been asked to be on a panel to speak on behalf of what it's like as an operator
Good for you.
in the current cannabis banking environment with what's coming through federally, also state-wise. I'll obviously have a lot to report there. And so I will, of course, be ready to share all of those lovely details with you guys.
Awesome. Maybe I'll have you on again for that, because, I try not to have people on too much in the season, but I'm like, when it's something important, I don't give a shit, because I had Victoria on a couple months ago, and I'm like, this is so important. And you had such a great point of views and, your perspective. I really appreciate it, especially with your background and experience.
And I think that Victoria, with what's happening with the DEA and the latest and greatest and the follow-ups to the hearing and all of that, I would love to know moving forward what I should be looking at, because I still as a operator have not signed up for the DEA licensing, although I'm ready to. It's a sit and wait. I'm ready to, but I'm still waiting for them to get their ducks in a row because it's kind of a hot mess, as we all know. But I would like to know more, like, what do we see coming potentially, or are we still on hold, or all of those things?
Yeah, well, I'll leave everybody with this then. I'm going to leave everybody with some homework. I know that's what you listen to a podcast for. So I'm going to leave you with some homework, and that is
tell me all the things.
Go read the DEA's post-hearing briefing that was filed a few days ago regarding the hearing that took place on the rescheduling of marijuana. That post-hearing briefing is incredibly interesting from the perspective of it being filed by and signed off on by the DEA.
Right.
That is where I would start thinking about what's going on with the DEA right now. And then we are waiting on a ruling from that hearing, and we have no idea how long we're going to be waiting.
And there's no timeline, right?
Exactly. So keep updating your news, keep doing some Google searches, stay on top of your compliance, and make sure that if you do find yourself in a situation where you need to apply, that you have those SOPs ready and that you're ready to go. Highly, highly encourage you, even if you're not planning on applying, to try to find out what you would need to apply. If you need that information, please feel free to contact my law firm. But otherwise, do your homework, take care of yourselves, and check on your neighbors.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And that's like the best guest outro we've had. So I appreciate that. All right, guys, we'll be back next week with another episode of Ask Chat Grassy Logic. Who knows? I might have Victoria on if something crazy happened, this coming week. So I'll see you guys next week. By Wednesday, Thursday, we'll know what's going on. So I'll see you guys by then. Make sure you like, subscribe, whatever you got to do to stay in the know. All right, guys, shoots.
A 1,000 years.
It's like 2 hours.